Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my respectful obeisances. All glories to His confounder, Acharya Divine Krishna Prabhupada, all glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Today is Friday, the 14th day of the month of February, 2025. And we're fortunate and gracious to have His Grace SARVATMA PRABHU, who is going to be speaking to us today from Srimad Bhagavatam. So SARVATMA PRABHU, you're welcome to our Krishna Africa platform. And we are very happy and blissful that you'll be speaking to us today on the essence of Krishna consciousness teachings. Today is celebrated as the Lover's Day, and people misunderstand what love of God is, or what love really entails in essence. So as we speak today, so we hope that you'll be able to touch some of these points. So probably if you're ready, I'll put the verse on the screen and we can start.
Sure. Go ahead.
Thank you. Okay. I hope you can see my screen too.
Yes, it's clear.
Yeah. Over to you.
Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tado Jayam Udirayet Nasta Prayeshavadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhagavati Nastiki. So the verse is from the third canto, 6th chapter, the 6th verse. Hiramaya Sapurusha Sahasra Parivatsaran Andakosha Uvasapsu Sarvasatvo Parbrimhita. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. The gigantic Virat Purusha, known as Hiranmaya, lived for 1,000 celestial years on the water of the universe, and all the living entities lay with him. After the Lord entered each and every universe as the Garbhodakshayi Vishnu, half of the universe was filled with water. The cosmic manifestation of planetary systems, outer space, etc., which are visible to us, is only one half of the complete universe. Before the manifestation takes place and after the entrance of Vishnu within the universe, there is a period of 1,000 celestial years. All the living entities injected within the womb of the Mahatattva are divided in all universes with the incarnation of Garbhodakshayi Vishnu. And all of them lie down with the Lord until Brahma is born. Brahma is the first living being within the universe, and from him all other demigods and living creatures are born. Manu is the original father of mankind, and therefore in Sanskrit, mankind is called Manushya. Humanity in different bodily qualities is distributed throughout the various planetary systems. Again, the verse, the gigantic Virat Purusha known as Hiranmaya lived for 1,000 celestial years on the water of the universe, and all the living entities lay with him. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chaksurumiritam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karuti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Shri Gurundin Taranam Paramandamaravam Shri Chaitanya Mishwaram. So, rather than getting into the intricacies of a Virat Purusha, which is kind of inconceivable, pretty inconceivable, especially to those of us are not endowed with even, the mind of Lord Brahma. I would like to comment on the point of resting, how there is a pause, one can say, for the living entities, just like there are cycles. One wakes up, whomever one is, whatever, let's say, even the life of a devotee, the devotee wakes up, takes a shower and chants rounds and goes to the programs and then goes to work and takes a break for prasadam and, continues to do things and writes and reads, etc., and then goes to sleep. So there are several breaks during this endeavor. It's even the Goswamis ate very little. Understand, just a few chickpeas and a little yogurt or a roti, and they will sleep very little, maybe sometimes half an hour a day, but they took a break. So everybody takes a break. Even Krishna says in the Gita that a true yogi is not someone who is constantly torturing himself, as we misunderstand the position of a yogi, someone who can tolerate stand in one leg for years, or just surround himself with hot coals and flames in the middle of the summer, under the blazing sun, or submerged up to the neck in the freezing waters in the Himalayas. That's a yogi, but a true yogi is someone who actually develops devotion for the Lord. And a true yogi, Krishna says, is a moderate, surprisingly. Someone who doesn't eat too much, not too little, sleeps too much or too little, and even does recreation. This word is used by Krishna. So here we see that even Lord Brahma, whose lifespan is ginormous, it's 311 trillion years. So each one of his days is millions of our solar years. Takes a break. There's a day and there is a night for Lord Brahma. So even Lord Brahma has to rest. So in that sense, the living entities which are attempting to go back to Krishna, some are, some aren't, they need a break. So they are at a certain point put into the Mahatattva. They're going back to the body of Vishnu. And this is a kindness of Krishna that gives us so many chances to go back to him. Just basically breaks are there so one can gain some energy and determination and enthusiasm to try again, to practice spiritual life. In the Christian tradition, it's not really in the Bible. It's not in the Old or New Testament. It's Augustine, the one who actually said that there is only one life. So Augustine, who's called Augustine, which is, according to the Catholics, is Saint Augustine, but according to what he said, he shouldn't be cataloged as a saint, because he said there is only one lifetime, no breaks. Basically, you have one time chance to go back to Jesus or God, and if you don't make it, you go burn into a lake of fire eternally, which defies the concept of mercy completely. What kind of compassion is available to someone who only has one chance and otherwise is punished eternally in a very horrible situation? It's like basically spending the rest of eternity in Guantanamo Bay, but worse. So this is not recommended. But Krishna, on the other hand, gives us a break, many breaks. At the end of creation, and even sometimes more often than that, the living entities get to rest in the body of Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, just as a measure of his compassion, his kindness, his patience, because obviously parents, teachers, anyone who is in a position of superiority and teaching at the same time, whether by example or by precept, is supposed to be kind and give a break to the students, whomever the students are. So Krishna is exactly that. He's actually given a chance. No one has more patience than Krishna. No one is equal or superior to God. Actually, that's another one from the Christian tradition. Anselm said that God is that entity who no one can be bigger, equal, or greater. So this definition was accepted. However, in our tradition, we can say no. There is a higher. Yeah, and actually, we can think of a lot of people are actually equal or greater than the Christian God, who punishes his own children, sends his own child to be tortured, and then sends everybody else to a lake of fire. Yeah, we can think of people that are better than that. So that definition is incorrect, because in the Vaishnava tradition, we have Krishna, Vishnu as its representative. Vishnu is God when he has a job, and Krishna is when he has nothing else to do but play. That's our God, and either of them is far superior to the unforgiving God of the liturgy of other traditions. So Krishna is giving us a chance. Krishna is giving us many chances, because it's somewhat difficult to conceive that a person will purify and polish himself or herself to the point of going back to God in just one lifetime. That is just too little, not enough time. We have so many accumulated sinful desires. It's difficult to deal with them, because you have to go little by little, getting rid of one at a time, if we can. Even just one, even lust or anger or greed or madness or illusion or stupidity or procrastination, you name it. We have so many things to deal with: lack of patience, lack of tolerance, lack of understanding, all the things that we try to work on, and even work for a whole lifetime in one of them may not be enough. So how can we finish our business in the material world in one lifetime and go back to Godhead, completely purified? We may sneak by, we can go through the airport and somehow or other, squeeze by with a bottle of shampoo that is 1,200 milliliters instead of the 1,000 milliliters that is allowed by law. We may sneak in a Swiss knife or a nail clipper, but the system of customs in the spiritual world doesn't work like that. They can catch anything. So don't bring anything to the spiritual world, because you're going to be sent back. And this is what we have to deal with. Our heart is filled with impurities. We had many lifetimes to practice this nonsense. So we have perfected the art of trying to cheat Krishna and others and ourselves. And this doesn't work. We cannot go back to God and that being that way. So Krishna is giving us such. Madhuvan Prabhu, can you mute yourself, please? Krishna is actually giving us many chances, and he's giving us rest. He's putting us in the body of Mahavishnu for us to, okay, rest, recuperate, recover, try again. It's same as an athlete. Maybe there is an athlete that is, is a sprinter. So he runs 100-meter dash and 200-meter dash and 400-meter dash. And then he does different exercises for sprinting. So at the end of the day, he cannot just, walk to the grocery store. He's exhausted. It's very difficult. So he needs, so the next day will be a day off where he gets to stretch, gets a massage. So this is our stretch and massage is being in the body of Mahavishnu, where we have a chance to start over again with renewed enthusiasm, and we can see if we can try to control the indomitable senses that are like snakes, cut the head of a snake. So the snake keeps moving, but the head is cut off. So this is how we have to deal with different bad qualities that we have been accumulating. And Arjuna asked this question to Krishna: how is it possible that we can see this? We can see that we have these bad qualities that keep creeping up on us. And even against our will, we do act in a certain way that is, we know is bad for us. We know it's bad for others. It's like an addict. An addict will, even if it comes from a good family, the person will lose all sense of the moral compass will be thrown off. It's going to steal, it's going to lie. So this is how we are in respect to our sense gratification. We cheat, we lie, we lie to ourselves, not just to others. So how is that this works? Arjuna is puzzled by this compulsion to act against our own will. And Krishna says it is lust. It is lust. And what is lust? Lust is simply to our desire to enjoy without Krishna. Because that's what boils down to. Krishna is the supreme enjoyer, and we want to be the supreme enjoyer ourselves. So if we got it wrong, because we think if Krishna enjoys, I want to enjoy. Just like you see, the Olympic Games. Someone comes first, you come in second at best. You're not first. So you miss the gold medal. So this is not the Special Olympics of spiritual life where everybody wins. We think if Krishna enjoys, then I won't be able to enjoy. But we don't understand that we cannot enjoy without Krishna. Our enjoyment depends on his enjoyment. That's why everybody who is smart is procuring enjoyment for Krishna, not for ourselves. And it's not like, we do it with a vested interest. Oh, if I give enjoyment to Krishna, then I get enjoyment. That is a much lower stage of devotion. The higher state of devotion is, I want Krishna to enjoy, and I don't care about myself. I want others to enjoy, I don't care about myself. So this kind of selfless dedication and devotion is very rare, very rarely obtained. So we can see that there are innumerable living entities, and there are some gopis, maybe millions, but millions even millions compared to an unlimited number, there's not very many. So very few make the cut all the way to the top. Mother Yasoda, Nanda Maharaj, the Gopas, the Gopis, those are the ones who got it right. They just want Krishna's enjoyment. Even in the spiritual world. In the spiritual world, there are many planets. It's not like there is anything lacking in the Vaikuntha planets. But to make it to Goloka, that's for a very few. That's for very few who are actually who understand Krishna's mind. It is explained in this chapter, actually, chapter 6 of the third canto, that even Brahma can understand that Krishna is inconceivable. That's as far as he can get. He cannot really understand. Actually, I'm gonna read you because the conclusion of this chapter, it really appears after the 35th verse, when Maitreya said, "O Vidura, who can estimate or measure the transcendental time, work, and potency of the gigantic form manifested by the internal potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? In spite of my inability, whatever I've been able to hear from the spiritual master, and whatever I could assimilate, I'm now describing in glorification of the Lord by pure speech, for otherwise my power of speaking would remain unchaste. The highest perfectional gain of humanity is to engage in discussions of the activities and glories of the pious actor. Such activities are so nicely arranged in writing by the greatly learned sages that the actual purpose of the year is served just by being near them. O my son, the original poet, Brahma, after mature meditation for 1,000 celestial years, could know only that the glories of the Supreme Soul are inconceivable. The wonderful potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is bewildering even to the jugglers. That potency is unknown even to the self-sufficient Lord, so it is certainly unknown to others. Words, mind, and ego, with their respective controlling demigods, have failed to achieve success in knowing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, we simply have to offer our respectful obeisances unto him as a matter of sanity. So this is a real understanding of a Virat Rupa that is inconceivable. We try to squeeze some meaning out of the universal form of the Lord and try to understand how the false ego interacts, and the planets and the age of and the arms, and it's just mind-blowing. It's not meant to be conceived by our little minds. Let's just let it be known that the Supreme Lord is a benefactor of all living entities and is inconceivable. Even Lord Brahma, after many celestial years of meditation, and he's a good meditator, as we know, could not understand. Even when he was born, Lord Brahma could not understand even where he was, who he was, where he was. So is a very long process. So instead of trying to understand the Virat Rupa, let's just understand the Lord is kind and patient, and is allowing us the opportunity to approach him, even if we fail miserably over and over. We can fail as many times as we want, and Krishna will keep sending help. He will actually make it easier for us. So since this is a very difficult topic to discuss, unless you brainiacs have some notion that we should get into, I thought of a different approach to today's class. A book has come out, just came out. I don't know if you have seen it. I put it on the screen here. It's called Great Bharata, Volume 1. This is the Mahabharata translated, and not just translated, but reconstructed by His Holiness Sri Dayananda Maharaj. So if you indulge me, I will read a portion of it from the first chapters. It's wonderfully. Thank you. Thank you. All I needed was a go ahead. All right. So is volume 1. He's working on volume 2 right now. This is called The Invasion Begins. This is much better than Star Wars, even though it's the same topic, that the invasion begins. So there is a lengthy introduction that I'm going to skip that explains pretty much the intricacies and the reason why we should understand this is an important document. This is actually the history of the Earth. So it is good for us to know the true history, not just dinosaurs eating people and men dragging women by the hair and beating each other over the head for real estate purposes. Chapter 1. Many thousands of years ago, by the bank of the Yamuna River, on a shallow inlet where the waters slowed and widened into a heaven for warm water fish, lay an old fishing village named Kalpi. Everyone had always called it Dashagram, fisher village, and the simplicity of its inhabitants made its simple name appropriate. The village had a leader who called himself Dasaraj, the fisher king. He insisted that his wife be addressed as Dasharajni, the fisher queen. Being naturally humble, she tolerated rather than enjoyed this name. With a strong will and a secret supply of gold coins, Dasaraj ruled the village. Within his humble means, he would not spend his gold coins. He tried to dress, walk, and speak like a king. He even tried to move his weather-beaten head and leathery hands with royal dignity. His wife, indifferent to her husband's royal pretensions, thought of her family's health and comfort and little else. This fishing folk lived in cottages woven of thick straw with palm-thatched roofs, each dwelling fronted by an earthen patio, smooth as glass, and swept morning and evening with straw brooms. The inhabitants drew fresh water from the river and had never dug a well. Sitting in their huts, or in the deep shade of mango and banyan trees, villagers sharpened knives and mended nets. Others tended vegetable gardens, cut fish and fruit, cooked and nursed. Fishers filled the inlet in boats and rafts. Broken old boats leaned against coconut and banana trees. Barking dogs completed the landscape. The villagers communicated primarily by shouting, even to those near them. The stench of dead fish scented the air. The king and queen of Dasa village had a very lovely daughter, Satyavati, their only child. She absolutely refused to be called Fisher Princess. Ironically, her extraordinary beauty and poise made her the only resident of a village for whom a royal name would not seem absurd to a visitor. Her 16th birthday had come and gone. The 17th approached. Each passing day deepened her disappointment with life. She did not like to fish nor harm any other creature. The stench of dead fish sickened her, so she served her parents by ferrying travelers across the river for a small fee. Her father always claimed to need money. Satya knew he hoarded his gold against future troubles, which always remained undefined. As a young girl, she spent her days on the river. Around a sharp bend, she had found a small abandoned island and made it her secret magic place. Here, as a child, she ate sweet wild fruits and dreamed of visiting Shuktimati, the great capital of her country, Chedi. There, she would meet the royal family and dance at royal balls. One day, years ago, when she was 8 years old, her life had suddenly changed. Across the river was a village of elderly Brahmin sages. They were kind, but never mixed with the fishing folk. As a young girl, Satyavati brought passengers to and from the village, but never tarried there. The sages were far above her in the social order. She did sometimes sense that the sages carefully watched her, but she dismissed her thoughts as foolish. Then one day, after taking visitors to the Brahmin village, two sages approached her and actually said that they wished to visit her village. This startled her. Sages never visited the fishing folk, though the fishers, hoping for material blessings, sometimes sent small gifts to the sages with those crossing the river. Young Satya nervously bowed to the two sages and welcomed them into her small craft. As they crossed the river, the sages spoke to her kindly, trying to make her feel at ease. Indeed, anyone could see how nervous she was. Upon arriving, she took them to her parents' hut and waited outside. She heard the sages speaking to her parents. She could not make out their words. The talk was short. The Brahmanas came out. She was to take them back to their village. They set off. She was too shy to study their faces for clues. Halfway across the river, a sage said, "Dear girl, you will come several times a week to study with us." Your parents agreed. You will begin tomorrow. After the visit, after the first wave of incredulity, Satya was too happy to speak to even to smile. Letting go of her rudder for just a moment, she clasped her hands and bowed to the sages. She had longed to study, to know the wide world, the histories of heroic kings, the wisdom of the Hala Veda. None of that was possible at home. She could not imagine why the sages had chosen her and dared not ask. She concluded that her dear Yamuna, the river goddess, had given her this blessing. The next day, her education began. The young girl was ecstatic, for her brilliant mind received nourishment at last. She brought little gifts for the sages, milk sweets and fruit baskets, and helped them with their chores. They sat with her under the shade of ancient mango trees near the shore where the Yamuna's waters lapped the silver sand. She knew her father was not pleased for her studies, but he dared not oppose the sages. They were holy. They had powers. At first, Satyavati tried to share with her parents the knowledge that so inspired her, but they were always busy or bored. Till one day, her father chastised her, shouting that she should not try to be better than her parents in anything. It was not her place to instruct them. Satya did not reply, but his words wounded her. She could not see him the same after that, though she did not betray her change of heart. Her heart and mind no longer dwell in the fishing village. She dreamed of visiting the great nations she had learned of from the sages, the Kurus, Yadus, the Panchalas. Most of all, Satyavati yearned to visit Shuktimati, Pearl River, the great capital of her own Chedi nation. Studies on contemporary political events fascinated her, which was quite unusual for a member of a humble fishing community of Kalpi. In the sand, the sages drew maps of Chedi and nearby kingdoms and their glorious capitals, and told her the distance to each. Soon Satya could draw the maps herself, with great capitals like Hastinapur, Kampilia, and Mathura, and her own Shuktimati. Most thrilling was a description of Chedi's king, her king, great Vasu, who had risen to the status of king of kings and flew about the world in a crystal airship given to him by the devil lord Indra. Satyavati never tired of hearing about King Vasu and his lovely, brilliant wife, Queen Girika. As her studies progressed, Satya gave up the crude speech of a fishing village. She now spoke with the elegant diction of her learned gurus, but her parents resented and mistrusted her fine speech. To avoid endless quarrels, she spoke crudely in the fishing village and increasingly yearned to escape its confines. For 8 years, Satyavati eagerly studied, continued to contribute to the family economy by ferrying travelers across the river for an hour or two every day. By now, Satya spoke like a most learned child of sages. She knew well the exploits of current and past kings, the history of countries with their alliances, victories, and defeats. She mastered geography, logic, political science, and current affairs. She now debated and discoursed on these topics under the proud, watchful eyes of her teachers. But all this she concealed from her parents and the other fishing folk. Her father continued to resent his daughter knowing more than her father about anything, and the simple villagers felt obliged to share his view. Her mother echoed her husband's views, though without real conviction. As Satya blossomed into a strikingly beautiful young lady, her parents found a new cause of dissatisfaction with her. She refused to choose a husband among the fisher boys. One day, Satya's parents came to her as she sat by the river, facing the dawn, quietly reciting her lessons. She braced herself for the predictable speech. "Young lady," her mother began, "our life is one of joy and grief." Satya could not stand to hear this again. "My love," her mother sighed, "the village talks about you. If you don't marry soon, what will everyone say?" You're such a beauty. The best boys in the village would do anything to win your hand. Handsome boys. But they're not good enough for you, her father grumbled. No, you're too good for all of them. Father, please, Satya tried to calm him, but it never worked. Handsome boys, strong boys, Dasaraja was nearly shouting, but not good enough for you. His wife, the Fisher Queen, sighed. Why won't you do your duty? Satya was desperate to escape. How many times we will talk about this? I like the boys, but as brothers, I won't marry them. I wouldn't be happy. But why? Her father insisted. You tell me why. You know why, she raised her own voice. I'm sorry, I really am, but I will not spend the rest of my life here. You're ashamed of your own people who raised and loved you, her mother cried. I'm not ashamed. I'm different, Satya cried. You know I am. I don't fit here. Her parents eyed each other. Her father fell to muttering. Her mother made a grieving sound. Satyavati bowed to them and ran to a secluded mango grove, weeping in frustration beneath the leafy trees. Satya was different, and whenever she said it, her parents had no reply. In her earliest childhood games, she was not a fisher girl, but a princess in a royal court. As years passed, her dreams grew more real. She married a mighty young king, inspiring him to fight evil and protect the innocent. She gave bountiful charity to all in need. She sat on a jeweled throne and granted the petitions of loyal subjects. Her parents knew of her fantasies and dismissed them as innocent games. But to Satya, this world of dreams was far more real than the oppressive monotony of a small fishing village. Indeed, when she thought of spending all her life there, she could hardly breathe. Her parents' plea to marry horrified her, for marriage in the village would trap her for the rest of her life. But today was a new day, and time for her lessons across the river. She ran to the sandy shore and gazed at the river in the soft early light. If only she could float away to another world. The idea thrilled and pained her. If she left the village, she would betray her people. If she stayed, she would betray herself. Across the wide and sacred Yamuna, fragrant smoke rose from the offering fires of her learned Brahmins. She was eager to see the early sages she adored and who adored her no less. She might not reach another world today, but she would escape for a while. She startled her mother with eager words. Please give me sweets. I'm crossing to the Brahmin village. I must bring a gift. Satya looked across the river and saw the wisps of curling smoke from the sacred fires. Soon the sages will be telling stories. She wanted to cross the river now. Why go there now? Her father shook his weather-beaten head and lifted his leathery hands for emphasis. We have work to do. You could mend nets. You have learned enough, more than you need. Satyavati shook her head and smiled. She raised her hands and said, Father, the Veda says we must serve the wise. You always taught that. I don't only study, I help the early sages. That is our duty, and our whole family receives blessings from that service. The Veda says that. What do I know of Veda? I know we have to work and work to do. Her father said brusquely, for now, the sages across the river are doing just fine. We have our own work to do, and my daughter should be here helping her parents. But the sages need our care, Satya insisted. They're also elderly and have no families to look after them. I must go. Dasaraja did not reply. Satya kept silent. Her father didn't need to help her if he would only spend a fraction of the gold coins he hoarded. All right, her mother said. We're tired of fighting with you. Cross the river if you like. You're a young lady now. May the Devas protect you. Yes, the Devas and mighty King Vasu, Satya cried. He loves his people and we love him. Remember how he and Queen Girika visited Kalpi when I was small? He was so handsome and kind. Why didn't he come back? Mother, will we ever see King Vasu again? Will he return? Stop dreaming, young girl. Her mother put down her needles. The great King Vasu will not return to the poor little fishing village here. Then why don't we go to the capital, Shuktimati? It's not so far. My dear girl, the capital is further than you think, and we will not go. We struggle daily to put food in your mouth, and you think we can sail off to a big city? But will I ever see the king again? Your father is a king, and you see him every day. If only you would listen to him. Oh, mother, I would love to visit the great capital of Chedi. They said His Majesty and beautiful Queen Girika live in a jeweled palace with the loveliest gardens. Oh, how you dream, young lady. We will all get lost in Pearl River, and people there would laugh at us. We are plain folk, and capital folk are rich and fancy. No, let us stay here and do our duty. That pleases the Devas. Well, I'm going to see the Brahmins now, Satya said. Her father grumbled. Her mother sighed and said, All right, dearest, if you must. Take sweets from a shelf. Beg the sages to bless our family and our village and the souls of the departed. Of course, mother. Satyavati grabbed the sweets and turned to leave when her father blurted out, Wait a moment, young lady. He closed his eyes as he always did when trying to decide a difficult issue. He opened his eyes. There's another thing I hesitated to tell you, but I will now. It may not be safe to visit the Brahmins. You may have to stop your study. Satyavati opened her eyes wide. Not safe? What are you saying? I mean, your mother and I heard stories. We didn't want to scare you, but we have been hearing stories like we never heard before. Wild beasts, demon-possessed, attack and kill sages in the deep forest. It's too horrible to repeat, the Fisher Queen said. Cruel, evil beasts, demon-possessed. The beasts go straight for the Brahmins. As if they know what they are doing, the Fisher King said. Who told you that? Satya demanded, deeply alarmed. It was a traveler. I don't remember his name. Where did this happen? It was in several kingdoms, her father said. I can't remember the names, but the man told us it was sickening. And he knew, and now they say it's coming closer. That is awful, if it is true, Satya said, doubting the story. Her father told many stories. Of course it's true, her father shouted. But why didn't you tell me before, Satya said. Because it was far from here, her father said. Faraway kingdoms. We didn't want to frighten you. Yes, her mother added. Don't talk about trouble and trouble won't find you. I learned that from my parents. But it's coming, her father said. Oh, yes, it's coming. Satyavati doubted these stories. Her parents always told her stories of evil spirits that steal bad children. Her mother was very superstitious and recited many folk spells to ward off all manner of evil and danger. Satya knew this was quite normal among the fisher folk. As a child, she had believed it all. As a young lady, she tolerated it as a typical superstition of simple people. Now Satya just wanted to calm her parents and get away to her boat. I see, I understand your concern, but surely King Vasu will protect his own land of Chedi. Brahmins are safe in Chedi as long as King Vasu rules. The Fisher King scowled. Yes, we hope the king does its duty, but she was desperate to change the subject. Oh, how I long to go to the capital to see our king. Oh, Satya, her mother cried, just stay here where you're safe. Though I do thank the Devas, the mighty King Vasu protects all his people. Seeing her father about to speak again, Satyavati hurried off. Could the stories be true? King Vasu possessed a heavily armed crystal craft that moved at his will. If dark forces had come to Earth and were attacking the sages, could the king stop them? Were any of them safe? That's the end of chapter 1. So, what do you say, Salikat?
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. This is beautiful. I wish I could have a copy of the book right away.
You can order it from Amazon. It's called Great Bharata, and there is a
Yeah.
softbound and hardbound.
Okay, I'll check it out of after the class. Thank you very much for reading
Okay.
it out.
So let's take some questions and comments if you're okay with that.
Okay, thank you very much, Prabhuji. So dear devotees, if anyone has a comment, questions, or contributions, rather from the class or from the beautiful story we just had, please kindly indicate by using the hand emoji or raising your physical hand. Meanwhile, Prabhu, while we were reading the verse today, and you started by discussing about the different perception of looking at the living entity staying in the body of Mahavishnu. You're looking at it as a way of giving a break. Srila Prabhupada often describe our present existence as a sleeping state. that this is another kind of a dream state. And I start thinking about when the soul is in the body of Lord Brahma, are there activities going on? Is the soul engaging in activities while in the body of Lord Brahma? Or is just inactive? Because the soul is, the symptom of the soul is consciousness and it's always active. So while it's in the body of the Mahavishnu, so what happens at that point?
I'm not exactly sure how things manifest. Just like when we go to sleep, there are different stages. There's like um, REM, rapid eye movement, when one has a dreams, and then there is deep sleep when there is no dream. Um, I'm sure there's different manifestations of the consciousness, different stages. So I'm not exactly sure. It's Krishna is taking care of us to rest properly. So there may be a consciousness is there, but it may be in a dormant state, just like when a person who is in a coma. It's not like a person is dead. The consciousness is there, but it's far removed from a present situation. So whether we are in a dreaming state or we are our state of awareness is probably very, very low. Uh, I think it's just like the reaction of the body is when one suffers um, greatly is to faint, to lose consciousness. So the suffering is reduced. So I think um, to know that we are in a latent, dormant stage is probably not a good moment to be aware of it. Like you've been put on a freezer for a while, for the time where you actually need to be revived and acting. So I don't know the technicalities of it, but I'm sure is for our good, Krishna diminishes our consciousness to the point that we don't need to suffer. And awareness, like if you are,
Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for
yeah,
that beautiful answer.
if you're
Um,
if you're
I was
aware,
just reflecting because when you were explaining that, you were explaining the Krishna consciousness perspective of or understanding of these subjects.
I think you're frozen, Prabhu. Um, at least on my screen, you are frozen. Sahadev, Prabhu?
Oh, so sorry for that, Prabhuji.
Sure.
Yeah, my internet just cut off.
Okay.
So, yeah, I was explaining that looking at the Western philosophy and understanding of God and His creation, His manifestations. I was in a conference yesterday and I was trying to explain the concept of Krishna consciousness, understanding of the scriptures. Um, the scriptures, when we look at the Western understanding, or let me say the Abrahamic understanding of what scripture is, it is quite different from what we understand in the Vedic tradition. The understanding, even though there is a clear statement in those scriptures that scriptures are not limited to the Bible or to the Abrahamic scriptures, but some, or maybe majority of religion is coming from that tradition, believe that if it is not written in the Bible or the Quran, it is not scripture. And when you look at the way the Vedic scriptures from Brahma hearing and Vyasadeva writing down the Vedic scriptures 5,000 years ago and how it came down to the present time, how would you suggest one expresses the authenticity of a Vedic scripture to someone coming from the Western tradition or Abrahamic tradition?
Okay, first of all, the Abrahamic traditions, they base themselves on the Old Testament and New Testament, which are written by non-contemporaries of Christ. They were written much after the departure of Christ. These are not this is not first-hand account, most of them. Also, there's a problem of history that throughout history things were changed due to PR, as during the reign of Justinian, Constantine. Every emperor wanted a different change, and they concede. It was a good PR move. Obviously, the whole Roman Empire became Christian. So if you have to change a few things like about vegetarianism and reincarnation and a few other details, but you can get millions of people to convert, do what you can. So there's also the depth of spirituality within the Abrahamic traditions, which is actually quite limited, I would say. You don't find portions of the Vedas, or like the most important part of the Vedas is about morality, which is, I mean, the Bible considers the Ten Commandments to be like, one of the greatest achievement. Yet the Ten Commandments is simply a set of moral instructions for people who have no moral compass. Literally, if you come to my home and I tell you, okay, you're welcome, just don't steal anything, don't try to have sex with my wife, do not wait a second. Even before I get to the third, another commandment, you'll say, obviously, I'm not being welcome here. No, as I'm just testing your level of morality. So the Ten Commandments is simply a set of instructions for the people that they were preaching at the time, which were fishermen, prostitutes, thieves, ruffians. It's just, oh, really? You can't do that? And same thing in the Quran. In the Quran, there's a statement. I'm not making this up. I mean, my imagination doesn't run that deep. There's a statement that says you cannot have sex with your mother. Okay. No, I think that's unnecessary to say, but I imagine that they wrote it down because some people objected to that and said, "What do you do for fun in the desert?" Just this is not what the Vedas treat about. They consider people who are above suspicion. They are morally righteous. They understand they're not the body, which in the Bible is not. This is very confusing. Even this simple concept that we are not the body, the spirit, soul, and who is God. They say the Trinity came much later. There's the Trinity of the Holy Spirit, God the Father and God the Son. This came much later. It has nothing to do with the original scripture. So they're confused because they're missing some of the elements. There's in our tradition, the system of check and balances is the scriptures, the sadhus, and the guru. So they don't have a disciplic succession from Jesus. They don't. And they have many splinters, and they all claim exclusivity. We are right, they are wrong. They don't try to see the things in common, just like in logic. You can see the thing as a whole, or you can see the different things that form that whole, which is a lot more difficult to be able to explain the whole picture. So I think this is the problem they have. They don't have consistency and tradition to bring it together. They don't have a guru. They don't have a living person that represents the teachings of Christ. So that's what we should demand. at least ask, if not exact, from them that, okay, what's your disciplic succession after Christ, who is there to teach by example, and after him, and after him? And these scriptures are written by whom? I mean, what was the character of these people? Christ took them from, just basically fishermen and salespeople, prostitutes, not the greatest crowd, not the greatest crowd. So their scriptures are meant to address. It's not like it's wrong. I mean, there are different strokes for different folks. There's a certain, even the Puranas, there's 6 Puranas in the mode of goodness, 6 for the people. They're not like in the Puranas are in the mode of ignorance, but the 6 are for people in the mode of goodness, 6 are for people in the mode of passion, 6 are for people in the mode of ignorance. And obviously, you can arrive to whatever conclusion you want. What the mlecha scriptures are meant for mlechas. So it's good for them. But they have to aspire to get more. Just like when you finish elementary school, you're not done. If you want to continue studying, there is high school, there is university, there is postgraduate, and there is postgraduate. So as far as you want to go. Our scriptures are for people who are morally correct, and they understand that they're not the body, and they are willing to sacrifice whatever it is in order to obtain the truth. And the truth is not just linear, it's the absolute truth. And as we saw from a verse today, or from one of the verses that we read, even Lord Brahma cannot really conceive of anything with 4 heads or with 1,000 heads. After meditation for thousands of celestial years, still he can't figure it out. What to speak of us with a little head, with a pea-sized brain? It's very difficult. We need help. And they need help too.
Thank you so much. This is very beautiful. I love the way you respond to it. And then, Madhvan Prabhu, I'll come back to you just in a second. I love the way you answer the question, because it is, Srila Prabhupada is so wonderful. Srila Prabhupada was so expert, was so bona fide. He was so there's no other word you can use to describe Prabhupada's mood of preaching, because I'm just wondering how Srila Prabhupada was able, when he came into the West, and he was able to somehow or the other bring people who are coming from this description you've just given, and he was able to present the Krishna consciousness teachings in such a way that it become an explosion. It's amazing. And then when I look at our present level of preaching Krishna consciousness and attracting people to Krishna consciousness, sometimes I think that in my mind, I said maybe probably there is no enough Shakti, or maybe probably we deviate from the approach that Prabhupada took, because one of the unique way of Prabhupada preaching was that Prabhupada descends, not descending, Prabhupada adapt the answers to questions or to the audience based on the audience. And I think basically that is what you're explaining in your answer. But I think I'll give this platform to
Let me just add something before Madhuvan Prabhu presents himself. If you excuse me, Madhuvan Prabhu. The merit of Srila Prabhupada, I mean, besides his incredible spiritual acumen, besides not being an ordinary living entity like us, coming from below, he's coming from above, Shakti Avatar, directly to help. He made it understandable to everyone. And he adapted, used the tactics that he needed in order to spread this information, which is largely misunderstood sometimes. Like I heard a discussion between 2 swamis, and one swami, this is a true story, I just don't want to say the names of them. One swami was saying, they were kind of questioning each other, what is the essence of preaching? how success can come out of preaching Krishna consciousness. And one said is, how did he put it? Strategy. That's from one of the Swami said. And the other one said is purity. So instead of being a stalemate, the one who said purity, the other Swami said, no, it's not purity. And the other Swami was surprised. What do you mean it's not purity? And he said, pretty simple. I'll give you an example. And he mentioned the other Swamis' areas of preaching. He said he was preaching in one area of the world, which was extremely successful. And he was preaching in another area of the world, which was a flop. Nobody will become a devotee. The temples were closing. So he said, and the amount of purity is the same because it is you. So how do you debate that? So we can see that strategy has a very important part in our Krishna consciousness. How we present. It's not like, you've done you said all the old mantras, you only ate sanctified food, you went around Tulsi 3 times, or multiples of the number 3. It's actually the strategy that you use. You implement it according to place, time, and circumstance. That is so important, because you can talk all day. And just like Satyavati was talking to her fisherman parents and didn't get anywhere because it were the wrong audience. They could not understand. So she just bit her tongue. So sometimes the best way to preach is to shut up. And the best way to tell someone about Krishna consciousness is to make them believe it's their own idea. And sometimes it is something else. It's always you have to actually understand time, place, and circumstance. Even timing, just like in music, if someone is off beat, the kirtan is a flop. So timing. Once I was running the temple in Tallahassee, Florida, for 5 years, and when I took over, I could see there was a girl that would come every month or two to the Sunday feast, and I could see she was devotee material, but not ready. I could tell she's not ready. I wouldn't waste, even though I could see her as a devotee, but no, she's not ready. So I waited. I was a brahmachari. I wasn't patient, but I understood. Okay, I have to wait. So guess what? I waited for 2 years. 2 years. She kept coming. One day during the week, I was preparing to paint the outside of the temple, and somehow or other, a friend dropped her off. And I said, and I could see in her face, oh, she's been through suffering. She's ready now, but I will give her a chance. So I said, tomorrow I'm painting the temple. Why don't you come and give me a hand? She said, okay, I'm free tomorrow. So she came the next day, and she told me, first I opened up. I said, okay, tell me what's going on. I can see that you're suffering. So she told me, broken heart and this and that and suffering and school and whatever. So I listened to all of that. And then I said, okay, you're ready now. So I just unloaded. Imagine, a preacher, brahmachari, for waiting for 2 years to preach to a person. I just unloaded on her like a dump truck of Krishna consciousness. And she took it. And if I was a day late or a day early, it wouldn't have worked. It was a question of timing. So she's still a devotee. And this is like 30 some years later.
Yeah.
So this is what we have to do. We have to actually use our intelligence and see who is the audience, not just being fascinated by hearing our own voice, and, oh, I know so much. I'm so potent. I'm so intelligent. I'm so funny. I'm so this. No, you're nothing. You're just a conduit. And the more transparent you become and the more aware you are of your environment, more success we'll have. Okay, sorry to have taken so long to.
This is beautiful. Actually, it is so interesting. I'm so enlightened by the answers you give, and especially the answers you give. And I'm just picking something very important in what you've just said because I remembered sometimes back, there was that discussion, my Guru Maharaj, Mr. Bhakti Titi Maharaj, um, some devotee asked him a question that Gurudev, when they come to West Africa, your preaching mode is different. You speak to us. You don't speak some of those topics you discuss when you go to the West or go to some other part of the world. So why is this? And then beautifully, just what you just said now, Gurudev explained that it is not just about giving what you have. It's about looking at what the audience needs at the particular moment, and you give them that. The fact that you have all so much does not necessarily mean that everyone needs the same thing. So you have to look at the audience. And he was expressing that in West Africa, and he started describing some of the characteristics of devotees in West Africa and why he preached the way he preached in West Africa and why he preached differently when he goes to the other places. So thank you very much for this beautiful
I'll
um,
tell you, I'll tell you a couple of short stories that you may already know. One is about Gandhi. There was a lady, Gandhi will be kind of like considered like the saint, although in our tradition, Gandhi is considered a saint among politicians and a politician among saints. He he was people will come and ask him for advice on anything. So a lady came with her young son, and she said, "I have trouble because my son would only eat sweets. So he doesn't want to eat any vegetables. He doesn't want to eat anything. And can you tell him, please, what's good for him?" And Gandhi said, "Bring him back next week." He just kind of dismissed them. And well, she didn't understand, but did what was told and came the week later. And when they came, Gandhi look at the kid and said, "Stop eating sweets alone. You need your vegetables." And and the lady asked him, "Why did it take you a week to say that?" He said, "Well, I had to give up sweets myself first, because otherwise I wouldn't have had the potency to say that." And um, I was I was going to tell you something else. Anyway, I forgot. There was another story. Oh yeah, the vet and the apprentice vet. You know that story? The that there was a vet that was going out with his apprentice, and they eventually came to a farm where there was a horse that had a gigantic tumor in his neck. So the vet asked the farmer for a stick, and with a stick just hit the horse in the neck, right where the tumor was. And the horse just jumped in pain, and but then he was fine. He was fine. So the apprentice to the vet thought, "Oh, I can do that." So he started advertising himself as a veterinarian himself, that he can cure. And he went around killing animals basically with this method, and came back to the vet and said, "I don't know, I tried to do what you did and it didn't work." And the vet said, "No, that horse, he had eaten a melon and he was stuck in lodging in his throat. So all I did was to break it and dislodge it, and the horse was fine." So we have to learn the art, of the subtle art of preaching or teaching Krishna consciousness from those who actually are successful, not just because of their purity or because of their position or because of their even seniority. Because I've seen so-called senior devotees preach in a very discouraging, anachronistic way. Like they will give a lecture and people be completely fried. Like, "Oh, he was so looking down at us, just like if we were garbage." So even though the lesson was the teachings were correct, they were delivered in such a way that they made them discouraged. So we have to learn it from wherever we can, and and this is an art. Just like you don't learn how to paint from someone who doesn't know how to paint. All right.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Madhavan Prabhu, you raised your hand before, so can you unmute?
I think he's frozen right now.
Yeah.
We'll
Okay. I think he's struggling to unmute.
Okay, he's back.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Maybe you can put off your video. The
Hare Krishna.
network, your network is a little bit weak, so we cannot hear you clearly.
What about Hare Krishna? Can you hear me now?
We can
Hare
hear
Krishna.
you.
Is it loud and clear?
It's better because of your video is taking a lot of amplitude from your net, which seems to be weak. Take your video off to make the question. There you go.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Is
Yeah,
it
very
better
good.
now?
Yeah,
Much
very
better.
good.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you much, Prabhu. I got a lot of realization from your lectures. Very nice. Just but briefly, where I would like to talk, when Prabhu Salika asked the question, how we present Hare Krishna to the public, I think the first thing is we have to prove that the Vedas predates all other scriptures. And I don't think it's too difficult to prove that for them to accept. Then secondly, when you mention about strategy, from my own observation, first and foremost, I understand that Krishna consciousness is easily given to people who are simple-minded, then people who are so maybe like free thinkers. So people or radicals, they easily accept other ideas. And when Prabhupada was in America, he was exposed to the hippies. And that time, the hippies already, they are radicals, they are conformists. So they were receptive to new ideas, something different from what has been going on. So when you also mentioned timing, I quite appreciated it. You know, timing. And that's why to preach out of normal interaction, you know, it's also very, very important. But one must understand the philosophy very well, so I'm able to present the philosophy. Hare Krishna. Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhu. I think you said it well. I just think that there are things that take time to understand, like deity worship, for example. I preached to so many people in my life, and I don't take them to see the deities until a long time after they understand a bit about Krishna consciousness. I don't present the rasa of Chaitanya Charitamrita to people who just, stop eating meat a week ago. I think we should take our time, just like some people are, as you call them, free thinkers, that they're easier because they accept ideas very easily. And some others are stuck in their world. There was a lady that used to come to our programs in Santa Barbara, came for over 20 years. And she even started reading the Bhagavatam. And she had a master's in mathematics. So you would say, okay, she's been coming for 20 years. She has a master's in mathematics. She's already reading the Bhagavatam, read the Gita. She will have a good grasp of the philosophy. No, she did not. She did not. So I think, and she actually revealed it to me by saying, I like Krishna consciousness because they are nice to kids. I mean, basically, we were nice to her kids. So that's all she cared about. So all the additional stuff about not harming living entities, about chanting the holy names, about not being the body, about Krishna being the supreme personality of Godhead, about all this stuff, it was secondary. She didn't care. She couldn't understand it. Didn't have the Sukriti. People have to have a certain level of piety in order to understand the philosophy, not just you shovel it down their throats and hope for the best. And because they're free thinkers, maybe free thinker may also mean they don't have much of a brain, so they can't select, they can't discriminate between one and the other. They, everything comes and yeah, it's all good. It's like someone who is constantly smoking pot. That person will probably lose a bit of discrimination and think the world is wonderful, not understanding, the difference between good and bad, right and wrong, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not condemning anybody. I'm not saying. I think it's our responsibility as preachers, as those who were blessed with accepting Krishna consciousness as our life and soul, to give it to others in a proper dosage, just like a physician. He knows, if someone has malaria, quinine should be administered, but you don't give them a gallon of quinine. You give them just the right dosage. So some people are more damaged than others. Some people are more philosophically dull than others. Some people are not as pious as others. Some people are traumatized, more traumatized than others. So you just give them what they can accept, what they can take, even if the dosage, the proper dosage may be higher, but they're not ready to receive it. Yeah, someone who is hungry, or a diabetic person is hungry. You don't give him a 12 glazed donuts for lunch. Even though, it may be great, but you're gonna kill that person. Yeah, so sometimes we give them so much, that the flame that is burning, we give them so much stuff. It's like ghee, you pour so much ghee on the flame that eventually, because the ghee is so thick, it will extinguish the fire. So we just give them whatever they can take, and that make sure that they want to come for more.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
I've seen bhaktas, that they will come and preach to someone, just new bhaktas. They're full of enthusiasm and they just learn a few things. And somebody comes and they just throw everything they learned for the last 6 months. And the person, that came, it's just their head is smoking. They don't know what hit them. They cannot understand anything. I've seen bhaktas, literally been in a movement for a week, and somebody comes new, and the first thing they hear is, Lord Brahma has 4 heads, and we don't use toilet paper, and it's just goodbye. That's it. That's all they needed to hear. You'll never see them again. So we have to use our discrimination and even give friendship. A person comes for friendship. A person comes for confidence, for advice, for food, whatever. Just give them what they need, and then add a little Krishna consciousness. Not too much, just a little spice. Like a good cook. You don't put, you like oregano, yeah, but you don't cover the pizza with oregano. You just put enough to give flavor. All right, I'll stop.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. This is very, very sweet. And
I think Sunita
Thank you
had
very
a
much, Prabhu. Thank you.
yes,
Well appreciated. Thank you.
welcome.
okay. Thank you, Madam Prabhu. Mother Sunita, you raised your hand at a point. Are you asking a question, or you were trying to use a different emoji?
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Thank you so much for the lectures. Yeah, it was a mistake. But
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Mother Senator.
Hare
I
Krishna.
saw you gave us some few expressions of loving what Prabhu was saying. It's actually very
Yeah,
sweet.
yeah, yeah. It was so sweet. Prabhu.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
that's why I put that. But it's not a question. I'm not
Okay.
asking a question. I'm so happy to hear the lectures.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Mother.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So, are there any other question or comments from devotees? Sarvatma Prabhu, before we close, I wanted to ask one follow-up question, which is in line with what we're discussing. Um, one of Prabhupada's small book, there's a book called Civilization and Transcendence. I don't know whether you remember that book. Civilization and Transcendence was the title of that small book. Some Prabhupada's conversation put into a book. What I want to use in that book is that I think it is one of his Srila Prabhupada's early disciple. I can't remember the name now. Maybe Purisha Sukcha Prabhu or someone was asking whether religion was going, or maybe the editors were asking Srila Prabhupada whether religion was going into wane. And Srila Prabhupada was speaking on the 12th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. As we're discussing this topic we're talking about, I was thinking, and then Bhagavan Prabhu mentioned something interesting. When Srila Prabhupada came to the West, there were different set of people who were kind of ready for some higher truths. And we see globally, I was discussing with one of my brothers recently, the mood when we join devotional service, we can see even in our own life, not to talk of the era of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Srila Prabhupada's era. We can see in modern times, people have become a little bit more, or let me say, a little bit more, less pious. So attraction to Krishna consciousness is not very strong. So indeed, in this modern time, and Krishna consciousness is supposed to last for the next 10,000 years. So sometimes one wonders, does Krishna consciousness, I want to put the question in the right perspective so that I can get the right answer. As people become more sinful, my question is, the next 10,000 years, Krishna consciousness is supposed to be preached. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission is supposed to continue for the next 10,000 years. But when we look at the trend of people joining ISKCON in the last about 40 years, Prabhupada left the planet. It's looking as if this 10,000 years is some kind of something impossible. How will you respond to that?
First of all, there is no scriptural reference to the next 10,000 years being the golden age. There isn't. It's something that Prabhupada said, but there is no reference to scripture. So I'm not sure about the sustainability of that statement, as maybe maybe it's one of those things that we will, like I think Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, when we'll know we are successful when we see the Supreme Court judge wearing tilak. You see, so there's no reference for this. It's like, it'd be a nice image. So to think of the next 10,000 years as the age of golden age for Krishna consciousness, well, we can see that it's going to be, if anything, it's going to be a lot less, because the age of Kali, if you read the 12th canto about the description of the age of Kali and so on, you see that it's becoming. I mean, when I joined, it seemed like when I read the 12th canto, I thought, oh, yeah, that's not going to happen for a while. But now, if you follow the news, which I actually don't on purpose, I get to hear certain things. It's inevitable, but it's coming quick. The age is degrading so much. The people that join, when Prabhupada said we are, Lord Chaitanya planted the seeds and we are just harvesting what, the soldiers that Lord Chaitanya sent. Yeah, that may have been true in the 60s and maybe part of the 70s, but no longer. I mean, the seeds are they already sprouted, flowered, blossom, and they're being taken. Now we have to hammer and chisel anybody to just become a devotee. People are not pious. They're not very smart. Due to the proliferance of the internet, they have the attention span of a fly. It's hard to get anybody to concentrate. They are more concerned about themselves than about anybody else, which is the opposite of Krishna consciousness. The gopis the concern is for others, and our bhaktas and bhaktins, their concern is about themselves. So it's a different crowd that is coming to Krishna consciousness. There are exceptions, granted, but the majority of people are not a very good, receptive, enthusiastic, selfless audience like we used to have. Nowadays is just people come with traumas and the mental problems. I mean, just people in general, they're all taking pills. They're just taking pills for everything. Yeah, it's because they're damaged. They're damaged good. The parents are bad. Their education is terrible. Their environment is horrible. It's just horrible. Widespread abuse of power is a very difficult time. Of course, if this happened in the 60s, what's happening now, I mean, it happened in a certain way with the Vietnam War and, the abuse, the Nixon line and all that stuff, kind of brought more people to to be discouraged about their environment. And if what's going on right now in the world would have been then, we'll have full of devotees. But because people are so dull and uneducated, like nowadays, you can ask a teenager questions in general, general culture, anything, history, geography, anything. And they have to Google everything. And even after they Google, if you ask them again, they have to Google it again. They can't remember anything. They will not retain any knowledge. Whereas when I grew up, I was encouraged, and I actually took it as as something nice to learn, to study, to read, to investigate. And even nowadays, when I go to a temple or when I hear a lecture online, if I'm not learning anything, I just turn it off. I just go read a book. I don't have the patience to hear the party line over and over and over. I need to learn something. So I use discrimination, which people nowadays don't seem to use it. They just go through a series of little short things that go through the mind and just as slippery as it is, disappears the next moment. So yes, Prabhupada arrived at a time, whether he's the one who was the catalyst to create this interest for India and mysticism and self-realization and yoga and vegetarianism and so on, whether it was due to his arrival or because it was brewing, Krishna created the perfect atmosphere for him to show up and harvest all these, precious jewels that were there in baskets for the taking. That time is gone. That time is gone. Now we have a completely different time, but we cannot compromise in the sense of compromise the principles and try to adapt things just to please our audience. Yeah, when I say preach according to your audience, give them Krishna consciousness to the measure that they can take, not water it down so they can actually take it. This is not the way you feed medicine to a dog, with a blowgun or inside a cookie. You cannot disguise Krishna consciousness. You just give them to them straight, as much as they can take, as little as they can digest.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. This is a beautiful. When you started the class, you consciously expressed that you didn't want to go into the that topic, and that led us to this point we're discussing. And I wanted to ask you a question. There is this, which is like a follow-up to the last question I asked. In the 1960s, 1970s, even 1980s, the strength of members that were joining Krishna consciousness was different, and you just explained it that times are different. Now, the next 50 years of Krishna consciousness movement, globally, not talking about a particular geographical location now, I'm talking about ISKCON globally. What would you say to someone? I had a question. I do a lot of public preaching and international preaching. So there's certain time an interviewer asked me a question. I was, when having a conversation about the history of Krishna consciousness, I was describing how Krishna, the Vedic thought, I started by actually, it was actually a lecture in the university. I was actually speaking to the university students, 400 level students, final year students, on world religion. So I presented Krishna consciousness as a part of Hinduism, because what they study generally is Hinduism. So I went into detail explaining how Hinduism is not a religion, how it is not even scriptural. And I went into giving the Vedic thoughts and the division of the Vedic thoughts, the 6 philosophy of India. Then I came to Krishna consciousness. Then I jumped some parts just to make it concise. So I talked about the 500 years of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's beginning of Krishna consciousness as we know it today. And I was giving explanations about the future of Krishna consciousness in that context. So one of the students has a question. First question he asked was, which is the highest religion in the world? And in my answer to him, I explained to the student that the highest religion is God consciousness. It is not Christianity, it's not Hinduism, it's not all of that. That all of that are just secondary things. But the real religion, that is the highest religion, and that religion is present in any tradition, depending on if the individual can attain that level of God consciousness. Then he asked a follow-up question, which is what I wanted to ask you. So he said, now you're presenting Krishna consciousness to us. What is Krishna consciousness in the next 50, 100 years? Because when you explain the era of Vedic thoughts and then how things have developed, now you're talking about 500 years of Krishna consciousness, starting by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's preaching, was a smart student. Then he asked me, what is next 50 years or 100 years of Krishna consciousness? So I answered it, but I would like to hear, if you have that kind of a question, how would you respond to that?
Well, first of all, let me add to your first answer to the question, what's the highest religion? I will just say there is only one religion, is love of God. And whatever brings you to that point is the best religion. And this is not the only religion, but it's the best one. So in our case, Krishna consciousness brings us faster and with less harm to the point of love of God. Because unless you develop love for God, you haven't gotten anywhere. And in order to love a person, you have to know them first. So Krishna consciousness brings a lot of information. Other religions describe God, but it's a bit vague. It's hard to go on a blind date with God. It's better to know what you're getting first, and then you may be able to love that person. And as far as the next 50 years, 100 years, well, I don't know. Many years ago, I said that the most popular section in Back to Godhead magazine one day will be the obituaries, because everybody's going to be dying. So just like people read the comics on the paper and the sports before they read the news, yeah, oh, who died today? You know, how many of Vaishnavas? So one thing is happening is that the old guard is slowly making room, you know, to be kind, for the new guard. But we say, well, the old guard, they're all so conservative and so stuck in their ways. Yeah, but you know what? That happens in any society, even among young. Some of the young people are conservative too. Some are too liberal. Some are too crazy. Some are too, you know, they believe in Krishna consciousness, but their real religion is conspiracy theories. It's just there's a lot of mix. So what's going to happen in the next 50 to 100 years? It depends on the people that we keep in the movement and then join the movement, and depend on people who are on their ambitions. If their ambitions is Krishna consciousness or their own search for power and their own agenda. So yeah, we need people who are learning the stanza from the first canto of Bhagavatam, Savai Pumsa Paro Dharmo Yato Bhakti Dokshaje, Haitukiya Pratihata Yayatma Suprasidati. Nothing can give pleasure to the soul unless it is unmotivated and uninterrupted. So those who adapt to that, they are going to actually be preaching real religion, and the rest are going to be just making a mess and being, you know, just putting obstacles in the way. So I don't know what's going to happen. I'm going to be gone. So thank God, whether to, you know, whatever my destination it is, you know, I just like, what's the poet? I can't remember. It's an English poet said, England, with all thy faults, I still love thee. I'm a loyal ISKCON member. That doesn't mean I don't see things. I don't see that there's a struggle for power, and some people, they cannot give up their own ambition for you know, for the sake of Krishna consciousness. I can see that there are saints all over the movement. Their devotees are very, very pure, and some of them are very quiet. They just don't make any waves, and some people are, you know, it's just a mix. The society used to be smaller. It wasn't much of a society. It was like a group, like an organization. I used to know the name of most of the devotees in the movement, and nowadays I have no idea. You know, there's a large spectrum in the society. There is people to the right of Ronald Reagan and to the left of Stalin. So I have no grasp of, you know, who is in charge and who is coming next. I can't tell the future. I can only say that Krishna's in charge. He's the world, as you know, some people think that the Illuminati or somebody's in control. No, the world is completely out of control. There's just nobody's pulling the strings. It's ultimately Krishna, and Krishna's plan is very difficult to ascertain. We have no idea what's coming next. We just have to be ready for anything, and we just better work on our Krishna consciousness. So when the time comes for us to intervene, in whatever capacity, we can do it. Like, things can change from one moment to the next. You know, you may think you're a big preacher, and you know, all of a sudden, you know, you make a really bad move, and you're just ostracized and ignored and vilified, and you think you're a nobody, and then all of a sudden you're, you know, everybody left, and you're the only one who can run a place, and you can change professions. Like, my wife had cancer, was diagnosed with cancer when we were living in Colorado a few years ago, and I had to switch gears. I had to become a caregiver, and my nature, I can assure you, is not that of a caregiver. But I thought, this is my service now. So I had to completely do a 180-degree switch. Now I'm taking care of her. I'm a servant of the servant, and this is what I can do. And I'm ready for the next change, whatever it is. So we always have to adapt according to our, again, time, place, and circumstances. So my answer to the student, yes, there is only one religion. And I'm not a religious person. I think we are actually joining a spiritual movement meant to revolutionize our lives and the world at large. So, your religion, my religion, it doesn't really matter. The real religion is love of God. Are you getting there? Good luck to you. And what's going to happen in the future? No idea. What's going to happen tomorrow? No idea. What's going to happen in an hour? No clue.
Beautiful, beautiful, Prabhuji. Thank you so, so much for this answer. Srimad Vara Prabhu, just a moment before you come. It is interesting the way you answer. My answer is very close to what you just said, but I gave some preliminary before finally coming to what you said, which is the summary of what you said. I ended up saying that I don't know what is going to be happening with ISKCON in 50 or 100 years. But before saying that, I went forward to explain to that student that as far as I know scripturally, this age is going to last for another 427 years or thereabout. And as long as this era stands, God consciousness will still be there in one form or the other. Just like 500 years ago, there was an intervention by the Lord, and there was about 60, 70 years of ISKCON movement in the West was a different era in itself. And God will always continuously make an arrangement, but in what shape it will come, I don't know. But I know that God consciousness will always be there. God will always find a way to make available means for students who are desirous to go back to Godhead to be able to come there. But what Krishna consciousness will be in 50 years, 100 years, I also don't know. And I'm happy that you said that. I'm really, really happy for this answer. I've been thinking whether I said something wrong, but even though I presented differently, but the summary is in line with what you just said, and I really appreciate it. It's been in my mind all this while. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
You're welcome. Usually there are scheduled incarnations that they come and take care of things. So if you, in 100 years, you hear Lord Kalki's horse coming about, there's been a change, and which will run for the hills.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Brother Prabhu, please can you unmute?
Dandavat Pranam Prabhuji, thank you very much for just a little contribution to the last question about what will be the future of each camp in 50 years to come. So historically, you can look at Christianity. The first 200, 300, 400 years of Jesus Christ, it was like nothing was going to happen. And they even suffer a lot of persecution. It took over 400 years before what Jesus Christ started began to permeate the society. 400 years. And there was such a bleak future because most of the pioneers and apostles were persecuted and killed. So Christian consciousness actually has a brighter future than what Christianity had. Going by the acceptance and going by how fast it has spread all over the world without any intervention of government aid, of any political power behind it. Most of the religions that spread all over the world, Islam, Christianity, they've had government support or political leaders supporting them. Krishna consciousness is the only religious movement in the recent time that has spread all over the world without any political or governmental support. So on its own strength and on the side of the truth that Krishna consciousness presented, it has stayed and it's still working strong. So I can say that the future is very bright. Today, it seems like there's a lull in the preaching. There may be some lull in people coming forward But that is just because it takes time for people to accept and digest the truth. The truth that Krishna consciousness is presenting, like Prabhu rightly said, uh, um, what is that verse? 127. What is it? Yes, yes. The supreme occupation is serving God, and that is the only thing that can please the soul. So, just this one verse, not to talk about so many verses that are revealed in the Vedas, even just this one verse shows that with time, many people will come to this realization. It will take some time, but gradually people they're beginning to see the truth that only Krishna consciousness presented threadbare, very clear. So this truth will come up after all the this technology, internet technology. It will also come down. You know, when there was industrial revolution, people abandoned churches. People abandoned. They thought that now they don't need God any longer. But later on, they started coming back. They saw that money was not solving every problem. So now after this internet revolution or technology, it will also go down. They will see that they are losing all their time. Just being absorbed in useless things. So the times are even better right now for Krishna consciousness to grow. We just need to be consistent in our preaching and being loyal to the parampara. Hare Krishna, my little contribution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mavara.
Thank you,
So,
Prabhu.
you
Yeah.
want to make comments?
Yeah, actually, Christianity had probably, Christianity happened about 2,000 years ago, minus 500 until they got the way together to preach in whatever way, whatever transformation Christianity suffered in those 500 years after, the charismatic leader passed away. They didn't have social media, so it was hard to spread, although the world was smaller and, they preach in a certain area of the world. And I will say, after 2,000 years, you can see the influence. 2,000 years. So there is influence. Christianity is all over the world. So yeah, we should hope that it will take a lot less for Krishna consciousness, which is a lot more abundant when it comes to instructional manuals, let's say, and with the help of social media and etc. So even though people are getting degraded by the moment and confused and persecuted and bewildered and so on, it should be a good time. However, we saw that Christianity after 2,000 years is not a solid movement. It's just many branches, the splinters of the original branch, which is hardly recognizable anymore, because who is actually representing Christ, who is actually teaching the teachings of Christ, not based on the death of Christ, which is a much later adaptation, but based on the life of Christ, who is living like Christ, who is living by Christ's own tenets. So even though Christianity spread, I will say it was very watered down and changed. It's not the original gospel of Christ. So I think we will experience that. We will experience variations of Krishna consciousness, just like nowadays. If you're looking for a quote from one of Prabhupada's books, it's not just Vedabase and Vanipedia. You will find, Prabhupada books and Sampradaya San, and many people who have their own interpretation or, the version prior to 75, and, just the same thing is happening to us. It's going to be splintered. It's going to be different groups, which I see as a good thing. And I explain to you why. The main tree is the tree of Lord Chaitanya, and the parampara is safe, is fine, is growing. And there are many branches that, sprouting out of the trunk. And some people are going to go for the branches. They don't want to be part of a main tree. They have their own reasons. They have, maybe they committed offenses, or maybe they disagree with certain things, or maybe they want recognition. Whatever the reasons, whether it's selfish or not, they are not part of a main tree. And Krishna is the one who is creating these kind of safety nets, so the fruit doesn't fall to the ground directly. It just holds on in one of the branches. And this is a good thing, because we no longer have to separate these people from the core of a tree. They do it themselves. They're doing us a favor. They're, getting off. It's just is a very good thing. It's like the bullies are getting off the school bus before the bus gets home. That's a good thing. That's a great thing, that the route that the bus is taking is dropping the bullies off first, so there is no fights in the bus. So I see it as a positive thing, that there are splinters and there are different things, as long as they hold the main tenets of the philosophy of Krishna consciousness intact, and Prabhupada in his own position, not like some of Prabhupada God brothers would say that, yeah, any of us could have gone to America and do the same thing as Prabhupada. No, they couldn't, and they didn't, matter of fact. So one thing is clear: Krishna consciousness is alive and well. The parampara is alive and well, and many things may take place. But as they say, the dogs may bark, but the caravan will pass. So we have to keep our confidence, our faith, that Prabhupada created a movement that is meant to save all the people that want to be saved by it. And those who don't, they will find an alternative, whether it is in Krishna consciousness or outside of Krishna consciousness. And good luck to all of them. Good luck to all of us too, because it's going to be a tough ride for all of us. So at the end, we will see. The result will be seen. What's the future in 100 years? We'll see. We'll see when it comes. Fortunately, I won't be there as a witness. I wish you good luck to all of you, young pups.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for this beautiful. Sometimes when we read Sukadev Goswami and the Maharishi are discussing Bhagavatam for 7 days, 7 nights, sometimes it looks as if something, but when you start listening to this Takata, you never want to stop. You just want to continue and continue. And it is in line with what Lord Krishna himself said in the Bhagavad Gita, that this knowledge is the purest of knowledge, and because it gives direct perception to the self by realization. It's a perfect religion, and it's everlasting. And most importantly, it is Susukam Avyayam, joyfully performed. So the bliss that you get when you listen to this kata is unimaginably too sweet, and you don't want to stop it. But we've been here for 2 hours, so we have to let you go so that you can do other service. Prabhu, thank you so much for giving us this sangha. It is very beautiful, and they will look forward to having you more and more and more and more on this platform. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for giving me a chance. And yes, I agree with your assessment that 2 hours is enough. Even Lord Brahma has to rest at the end of the day.
Thank you. So, dear devotees, on this note, let us, I request all of you to kindly unmute and let us loudly chant a loud Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to appreciate SARVATMA Prabhu for this wonderful presentation. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare
Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Vanchakarpata
Gacha, Gacha, Patitanam Yo Vishnavyo Namo Namaha.
If you allow me,
Jai.
Jai.
Acharya is Vangrishla Prabhupada ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinde ki Jai. Nitai Gopinande.
If you allow me, Prabhu, I would like to give you darshan of my deities. Is that okay with you?
Oh, yes, Prabhu.
Okay. 1 second. This is meet Radha Govinda.
Hmm. Hare Krishna.
Oh,
Wow.
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 Oh, so beautiful.
That's so beautiful.
Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Oh, thank you so much, Prabhuji. Wow. 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 Taking about this. This is beautiful. Na Jai Nasima Bhagawan ki Jai.
Jai.
Shri Krishna Balaji ki Jai.
Jai.
Wow.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Welcome.